Welcome to the show, folks. Tonight we're going to talk about Italy. I'm going to tell you what. There's a phenomenon that's happened in the last few years. Now, if you go back hundreds of years, say you go back to the French Revolution, people, back in those days wouldn't take all the shit people take nowadays. And people accept the shit that they're fed. And you know why they accept it? The cell phone has an awful lot to do with it. And the computer. What's happened is people have become so complacent that they're willing to let government step all over them. And they take it over and over and over again. But at a certain point, some of them start to wake up and take notice. We should all be waking up. Because in the end, government will have us all completely in chains. But yeah, they'll still let us have a cell phone. So, this is a babysitter for the masses. It's a goddamn cell phone. Excuse my French. I'm just upset about it. I don't get upset about things very often, but it's these things that are making us complacent are bringing us to the point of ruin. And if we don't wake up soon, it's not going to be good. And anyway, we're probably going to wake up into a crisis one of these days. Because these fools that are running things, they're going to lead us to this crisis. So it's almost a crisis in Italy right now. It's almost a Europe-sponsored constitutional crisis. We're almost in it. And the thing is evidently they are completely ignoring what the people want. And okay, I'm going to read a little bit of this here. It says, in what may have been a worst possible outcome in this weekend's events in Italy, Rome finds itself on the verge of a Europe-sponsored constitutional crisis. Recall that when we previewed the possible outcomes of Italy's government stalemate, in which President Mattarella had threatened to veto the choice of Paolo Savona, an economic minister, due to his anti-Euro establishment sentiment, we said that the most likely and market-friendly outcome was for the President Mattarella to give in to public pressure and the threat of a new election, averting a potential constitutional crisis. We also said that the second most likely outcome, and potentially far worse for the markets, was that if Mattarella and the coalition partners hold firm, we may be set for new elections with the M5, a Five-Star Party, likely to repeat April's success, and Lega likely to increase its share of the votes, eating up Barcelona's party. Moments ago, that's precisely what happened when Italy's premier designate, Giuseppe Conte, 53 years old, told reporters after a meeting the head of state Sunday evening that he has handed back his mandate for forming the government of change to President Mattarella. I can assure you that I did my utmost to try to fulfill this task, he added. As a result, the League leader, Salvini, said, Italy is now set to vote again. As we reported earlier, Mattarella, who is supposed to be impartial but appears to have been anything but in this case, was tasked with naming the premier ministers. Earlier rejected the candidacy of economist Paolo Savona, 81 years old, who has repeatedly urged the Italian government to plan for a Euro exit, and who has criticized what he says in German dominance over Europe. So this guy, Paolo Savona, he's 81 years old, has urged the Italian government to plan for a Euro exit. And what did they do? They've rejected his candidacy. And evidently, he is the people's pick. So, in other words, Mattarella sided with Europe over Italy's own choice. And so, Brussels is now picking the government of Italy, and not the people. because they've canceled the people's choice, evidently. It says, we worked for days and nights to ensure the birth of a government which depends on the interests of Italian citizens, but someone, under pressure from whom, said no to us, Salvini wrote in a Facebook post, indirectly attacking the president's veto of Savona. Oh, Salvini wrote in a Facebook post, indirectly attacking the president's veto of Savona. At this point, with the honest coherence and courage of always, you must now have to say, Salvini added a call for the early elections. Salvini's scathing attack on the president continued. If a government has to start conditions by threats from Europe, that government won't be backed by the League. The League leader then said he'd seek a full mandate in the event of new elections. For his part, Mattarella pretended that he wasn't the reason for today's dramatic failure, which some have said may now result in a constitutional crisis. Well, you know what about this? This constitutional crisis would only depend upon the people. If the people are willing to bend over and take it up the you-know-what, then perhaps there won't be a constitutional crisis. But if the people are told to bend over and they don't take their pants down, if they turn around and stand firm to these, I'm lost for words for what these guys are, but I'm going to tell you what, if the people stand firm and the people say no, then these guys run like a bunch of chickens. That's what happens every time. They run like a bunch of chickens. They run scared. Oh, they're big men. Oh, they're really big men, as long as the people are being quiet and taking it up the you-know-what. But when the people stand firm and the people come at them in mass, you find out what chickens they really are. Because you know what they really are, all of them? They're a bunch of sociopaths. That's what they really are. And they're terribly frightened of public opinion and what people think of them. Because that's how sociopaths have to fit into society. They have to be very careful of public perception. They're very frightened of what people think of them. And because that's how they learn to survive through life. They learn that if they show their true colors, they learn that they don't get anywhere. So they have to put on a false front. But it's only a facade. And this is what these politicians are. Basically, what we have ruling us is a bunch of sociopaths who don't know when to draw the line. The people have to stand up and tell these people when and where to draw the line. And so if the people in Italy want to stand there and want to take it, well, you know how it's going to end up. It's going to end up Brussels picking who is in power in Italy. So they say here, what happens next? And they say nobody knows. And certainly not Italy's most popular politician, five-star leader Di Maio, who said it is unclear what will happen in the next months. 5 Stars Di Maio says unclear what will happen in the next months. So, Italy's Mattarella says it'll take a decision soon on the next step, which means the president will now wait for his marching orders straight from Brussels before deciding what to do next. Meanwhile, the Italian people can be delighted that their own president has hijacked the political process to the benefit of Merkel and Claude John Van Juncker. You know, Claude Van John Juncker, the guy who works for the aliens. In his own words, quite literally, there is one other possibility, as we have laid out earlier, a very unlikely scenario that Parliament calls for Mattarella's impeachment, as per Article 72 of the Constitution. Well, see, that's what they'd do if they were really working for the people, for the will of the people. Okay? So anyway, thank you guys for listening. Italy is in a situation here. It could escalate into something much more potently volatile. Okay, bye-bye for now.